Welcome everyone to the regular meeting, Monday, December 9th, 2024, of the Village Trustees. I'm going to call this meeting to order.
Okay, so we just exited executive session, so I'd like to make a motion to enter into a 2-year contract with MBR.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a first and a second to approve a motion to accept a contract with MBR. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried to accept the contract for 2 years for MBR or further space. Thank you very much.
And we'll go now.
And now the regular meeting. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review. Bill, you have something to add?
Sure.
Yeah, one thing to add, a KBS, Cattell Brannigan Sargent audit contract for review.
Under
Where do you want to put it?
14A.
We can put it under 14A or 15, probably 15, other necessary business.
Okay. Anything else? Adam, do you have something?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay. Moving right along, public comment. Anybody in the public have anything to say? Alright. Moving right along, number 7, approve and accept the minutes from Monday, November 25th, 2024, meeting as presented.
So moved.
Second.
You have a first and a second to approve the meeting minutes from November 25th. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. Number 8, approve and accept village warrants through December 5th, 2024.
I vote we accept them.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second to accept the village minutes from warrants from Thursday, December 5th, 2024. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Number 9, Catherine. So, is she online?
She's online.
Oh, okay, great.
I think so.
Okay, Catherine Dimitri from Northwestern Regional Planning to give update on implementing changes in Act 181 related to Act 250 and designations.
Hi, thanks for having me tonight. Can you hear me okay?
You can?
Yeah.
Man.
Great. I'm really sorry not to be there in person. I started out and then turned around because my road was a mess and I got to the main road, it was no better. So I took the easy route and turned around knowing that I could join you this way, but I'm really sorry not to be there in person. I was looking forward to it. So I won't take too much time on your agenda, but I just wanted to do a couple of things. One is to just check in, say hello, make sure you're aware of Regional Planning Commission and the services we offer the village, and all the work that we've done for the village in the past year, including providing funding for brownfield sites and working with your staff on grant applications. You know, we're really your resource and we're here to help, and we love working with the village. So we're excited about future projects as well. Last year, the legislature passed Act 181, and it made sweeping changes to Act 250, the state designation program, and regional plans. The changes to Act 250 had 2 parts. One was immediate. There were some interim changes to Act 250 that changed jurisdiction for housing projects in particular. So right before Act 181 was passed, if you built a housing project of 10 units or more, you would automatically trigger Act 250. The interim changes that went into place made it so within the village designations, which Swanton has one, and a quarter mile outside of that, you would need to build 50 units or more on over 10 acres in order to trigger Act 250. So it was a real change in jurisdiction, really looking at trying to have Act 250 really not pay attention as much in the areas that are planned for growth, like Swanton Village. So that is currently in place now, and that was a change that went into effect on July 1st of this past year. There is a new system of doing regional planning. So just like Swanton has a municipal plan, we have a regional plan. And prior to passage of this law, the regional plan was useful in the sense that it was a plan and we're looking at a vision and we're planning for the region and it did have an effect in Act 250 under criteria 10, helped us to support grant applications. But beyond that, there wasn't as much value to it as one would hope. Act 21 actually changes that. Now, the regional planning commissions are going to have definitive value in two ways. One is that for the state designation program, instead of each municipality applying for a designation, like Swanton Village went through its designation application, you just went through some modifications to the boundaries. Instead of doing that, the Regional Planning Commission statewide will now be mapping the designated areas in our regional plans. And once our regional plans are approved by a new state board, then all those designations are in place. So there'll be no more renewals, there'll be no more, 200 towns applying to a state place in order to get your designation. So there's a real simplification of the process included in that. And we're really excited about being able to work with our towns on those boundaries and build them into our regional plan.
Catherine, question.
The second way,
This is Adam.
hi Adam.
If the town or village change the borders of the designation, do we have to go through the whole process again, or is it simply a rubber stamp?
So there's two answers to that question. So when we are working on our regional plan updates over the next year, Swanton will be able to change the boundaries right then. So we'll be able to make adjustments, probably make the village designation larger.
Yep.
So we'll be able to do that then. Once the regional plan is approved, you can do adjustments of up to 10 acres just by the Regional Planning Commission submitting a letter saying, here's the adjustment to the boundary.
Okay.
So in both cases, it's gonna be easier, I think.
Well, and that's good. I mean, I know in the past we've had, a few issues getting things changed, but if it's simply going to you folks and saying, hey, we want to redraw the boundaries, then, I think that's a benefit all the way around for everybody.
Yeah, I think so. And the other thing that's happened to the designation program is the language was loosened up a little bit for the designated village areas. So I know there's often a lot of back and forth with the state folks about where's the boundary, and they tend to draw it very tight. The language was loosened up a bit, so there's a lot more flexibility to include more area in the designated village. And there's a second designation program that's been added. So right now there's 5 designation programs. Those have been shrunk to 2. So one would be the designated centers like Swanton Village has currently. And the second is something called a neighborhood. And that's really all those areas around the core village that help make it vibrant. It's where your industry might be, or some of your parks, or some residential development that supports the village. So this new neighborhood area will also be included in the regional plans. And once the plans are approved, that designation will be in place. So Swanton town and village together will actually have a greater area that's eligible for different state incentives.
Will the requirements change for making these designations?
The requirement for the centers has not changed. So Swanton beats all of them now anyway, but there's really no requirement for a village center. You don't have to have a plan or zoning bylaws or anything like that. To qualify for the village area, this new designation that goes around the village, there are some requirements. There are some basic requirements that you have to have a town plan or a village plan. You have to be confirmed by the Regional Planning Commission. You have to have zoning regulations and subdivision regulations, and Swanton meets all of those. Okay. So you're all good.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. So that's one way that the regional plans are really going to be more important. And the second way that regional plans are going to be more important is in the Act 250 jurisdiction that I talked about a minute ago. So right now, as I noted, there's some interim Act 250 exemptions for housing units of up to 50 acres on 10 acres or less. This new, under this new framework, the village centers and this village neighborhood area that we just talked about, those two places are going to be eligible to continue that interim exemption in perpetuity. So if the town and the village opt in, so if you decide you want to be part of that, then Act 250 will only apply for residential developments in those areas if they build 50 units or more on 10 acres or more. So you'll be able to extend that interim designation to the town and the village areas to encourage and support more housing. And so we'll map the areas that are eligible, and then each municipality will decide whether they choose to opt in to continuing that interim exemption.
I don't suppose stormwater is included in that.
You mean you get all the help you need with stormwater? No, sadly.
Just had to ask.
Yeah, it didn't include the magic wand for the 3-acre permit or anything like that, unfortunately.
Really
But,
shocked.
you know, for it, you know, I think you should ask that at every meeting with everyone.
He does.
Oh, good. So that's it in a nutshell. It's a 170-page bill, so I could give you an hour-and-a-half long PowerPoint presentation on it, but what I really wanted to hit were those two key areas where the regional plan is going to be more important now, to just give you a preview of that and let you know that our staff will be working with the Planning Commission on those boundaries and with the staff in the village and the town to do some work on those boundaries and make sure that they really reflect the needs of the municipality. And then we'll be doing that over the next 6 months. We'll be working with each town in our region. And then we'll be working with our towns after that to decide which towns want to opt in to continue that interim exemption for that Act 250 for housing units. So we'll be back to you at some point in several months, but
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I've got one question, Catherine. For density housing, is the cap at 50 units for under 10 acres, or can there be more units under 10 acres?
It's 50 units and 10 acres, so
Okay.
either one would trigger it.
Either one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't think you have too many 10-acre parcels left in the village.
Nope.
Oh, yeah, nothing. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
Well,
Catherine.
thanks
you,
for
Catherine.
having
Have a
me,
good
and
evening,
we'll be,
Dan.
Thank you.
thanks. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Just had to ask.
Oh, yeah, why not? They're the ones to ask.
I gathered that.
Number 10, Aldrich and Elliott present wastewater and water infrastructure assessment report.
Hey,
Welcome back.
how are you? Good to see you again.
Can I share with you the way that she just did? Is that cool? If I share a screen to show the PowerPoint? Hi, my name is Jeffrey Lewis. I've had the pleasure of meeting you all, most of you, I believe we actually all met in the past. I'm from Aldrich and Elliott. We've worked with you on a number of water and wastewater projects, and what we're currently working on with you guys is a capital expenditure plan. The purpose of tonight's meeting and kind of why I'm here is to tell you about what we're doing. I don't have a final report available for you guys at this point, but when it is ready and you guys see it, I just want to give you a heads up of what it is that we're trying to do, and kind of what it is that we've done to get to the report that you are going to have, if that makes any sense. Let me just start this actual slideshow, sorry. It is snowy out there if you guys are looking to drive. It's one of those nights. It would appear as though it's the wrong screen. Sorry about that. Let me share the actual window. That's good enough. Cool. Yes. So back in March, There was a statement of qualifications put out for a capital expenditure plan. You guys have about 1,500 customers that are on your water and sewer systems. And the intent of the project was to catalog the water distribution and water collection infrastructure, identify any needed work, and try to put some numbers to it so that your great extraordinaire Heidi had something to kind of work off of, like a hit list to say, these are the projects that we need to do. This is approximately how much they cost, and here's a rough risk outline as far as what needs to be done where. That's the overarching theme. Background as far as why we're not really doing much and why we're kind of focused on just the collection systems and the distribution systems. As you know, you have a major upgrade project going on right now at your wastewater treatment facility. I believe you have significant work going on at your water treatment facility plan as well. So those kind of the major pieces and the kind of the big hitters that are the horses that kind of drive your systems are all being very well taken care of. This was more, okay, we have this other water line and sewer line. Let's look at that and see what else needs to be done just to make sure that we're kind of getting a holistic view of everything that needs to get taken care of. So starting with your water system, this is just going to be pretty high level. You have 20 miles of water line. What we've done is we've looked through and we've updated and kind of made sure that you have a complete catalog of your water lines, your valves, your hydrants, and you have detailed maps that show exactly what all of that is. This was started and begun by us a little ways ago. We did a project where we created a bunch of spreadsheets for all of these assets, and we've gone through and updated those and touched those again to make sure that those are all up to date. And by just cataloging everything and having a list of everything, it gives you a way that if you work on something, you can kind of document this is what's been touched, this is what needs to be done, kind of having those lists. That was part of this project, was going in and retouching all of that. All of your hydrants, valves, and lines have assigned asset IDs. That is important for when people are talking about assets, just getting to talk about things. Speaking with Dean in particular, I believe that we've been able to kind of help him with some of his desires as far as maintaining and kind of tracking his hydrants. So that was another benefit of this plan, and kind of just one of the initial steps that we're trying to do. Outside of us, Heidi had put together and gotten you guys funding to go through and do a valve exercise and leak detection study. And we were able to take the results of those two exercises and have that inform part of what we were doing and kind of add that in as far as the list of work that needed to be done. There was some minor work that was identified there. So what came out of that and what kind of stuff are you going to see in this plan? On the leak detection study, there were 5 minor leaks observed. They were all minor, less than 2 gallons per minute, which sounds like a lot if you have 2 gallons per minute over the course of a year. But overall, the ones that were observed were very, very minor, not really visible from the surface or anything like that. And so addressing those kind of things and having those in the plan as far as kind of going through, they were at fittings, valves, so like replacing valves, replacing fittings, going through and kind of working on those identified things. That'd be an example of like a capital expenditure, a small project that you can do out of capital plans as part of your yearly maintenance and maintaining 13 miles of water line, or 20 miles of water line, I'm sorry.
Question.
Yes.
How did you find that?
I'm sorry?
How did you find those leaks?
So they use something called an acoustic. It's a fancy microphone that listens to the water.
Oh, I see.
Water makes a sound when it leaves a fitting, and so they just listened carefully to find out where it was leaking from.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So people know what you're doing,
Those people are pretty cool. Yeah, what they were able to find.
and our people know what you're doing.
Dean said it was really neat, he explained it to me, and he said it was really cool.
I bet it is.
Another part that was kind of done
Do it without.
and kind of tracked as part of the study, you have 350 valves in your system, kind of buried in the ground. It looks like 85 of those were operated as part of a valve operation. They take a truck, they put it on the valve. A computer kind of watches it as it opens and then closes the valve, and they report if any valves have any issues opening or closing. In that study, there were 16 that were rated as being in fair or poor condition. Basically, if you go to close a valve and if you can't close it, it can cause problems down the road. So kind of putting those 16 valves in order as far as like what the most important ones are, and kind of that's another example of a good capital improvement plan. Valve replacement would go under that line. So for both of those kind of replacing valves or fittings, that was kind of one of the findings from this report would be kind of taking those findings and putting them in and putting them into a list for you. One of the other things that's under focus, and it's always kind of a focus as far as whenever you're talking about whenever you're talking about something of this size, as a water system provider, one of the things that you need to figure out is what your service area is, and am I providing sufficient service to the people within my service area? There were a number of lines identified within what is identified as the Swanton water service area that are currently undersized or unable to really meet the needs that are currently present for those customers. So there are some examples, and you'll see them kind of talked about. One of the biggest examples and kind of the reddest flag that is going to be something that will need to be discussed and determine how you'd like to kind of move forward. Middle Road has a 1.5 mile long 3-inch line that I know you guys have all heard about. There have been things that have come up on it. So what we can do for something like that is look at, okay, we have a 3-inch line that exists currently. If you were just to replace that entire line in kind right now, what would it cost? It's a high number because of its length. It's about $2 million to basically put a new line in the road right next to it right now. And then kind of finishing this plan and kind of fleshing things out, seeing how people feel about that kind of a number, kind of putting things down as far as what the proposed project would look like. That'd be an example of not a capital project. That'd be a major undertaking to kind of do a big water line down the road. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Projects such as those that are very large bring that idea of what is the scale and scope of our water line into pretty sharp focus. You could continue that water line down as far as you want, basically on Middle Road, and connect it all the way back around over onto Nashwan Shore Drive there, Naquan, I'm sorry. But the price tag just kind of keeps going up, and you can kind of go kind of crazy with that. So it's a matter of having somebody kind of steer the ship as far as what we're looking for and kind of identifying what the final desire is from the village as far as addressing a line like that. Or you can go less and say, okay, we have a 3-inch line, it's not good. But we're not going to replace the entire thing. We're only going to go up the road this far because this is where most of our people are, and kind of feeling out what it is that people want to do. So that's an example of a project that is more of a project that requires more of like a definition as far as parameters, as far as what people want to do and all that. And then you have something in between our massive $2 million project that we propose and an easy $5,000 valve replacement. Gallup Court and Dewey Street, those are old 2-inch lines that are about 300 feet long. You're looking at a sizable amount to replace those. They've also reached the end of their life, and they're not currently meeting the services that's there. But you're kind of in that $130,000 to $150,000 range or so for each of those kind of projects. So having a long list of these are the and the examples go on, but this is just kind of an example of what you're going to see in kind of projects. And having those kind of all laid out and kind of identified is the goal there, so that you're aware of it. Nothing says this isn't a failed sanitary survey. This is not saying you have to do any of this. This is more, here's things that we've noted as deficiencies, and kind of allowing kind of as a map for things for people to kind of figure out where they want to spend money and what they want to do. Here's Middle Road, in case we had more questions about it. It seemed like everybody nodded their head when I talked about what was going on there. Another thing that we did as part of this project, fire hydrants. You have approximately 148 fire hydrants as part of your system. Fire hydrants are like the forward-facing people meters of the system. They stick out above the ground. They're the way that most people interact with the water system. It's your best way to get there. As part of this project, we came out and we did we accessed about 20 hydrants to do flow testing for a day with Dean. That involves going to a hydrant, putting a gauge on it, going to another hydrant, opening that hydrant up and letting it flow water, and then observing what happens in the system when that water is leaving the system. This does a couple things for us. One, is the hydrant operable? Like, it gives us a good sense of how often these things are being used and how well they're being maintained. In general, water lines should be flushed about every 6 months or a year at most. So having a good sense as far as like how often your water system is being accessed is a great thing. Again, meeting with Dean, your public works department is doing a good job accessing your water system and regularly flushing, which is great. But one of the things that this fire hydrant testing really kind of highlighted and kind of indicated is that you have some older lines that have tuberculation issues. So you have some older, when we went down First Street, we opened up the fire hydrant and there's a gauge that we can put on it and see how much water is able to flow out without having a pumper truck or anything to kind of help it along. And it wasn't able to actually register on our gauge the amount of flow that was coming out. That's not to say that there's a problem with firefighting capability or anything like that. That just is an indication to us that when this line is open, it's not getting a ton of flow. So that indicates that you probably have some of these older lines, which is completely expected, that are kind of decreased in diameter on the middle, and you might need to do something to address that as far as getting water more accurately through your system, adequately through your system goes. You're partially doing that with your plan to put a new water line under the river. That's a project that you guys have going on right now. That'll help with looping, and that'll help with certain aspects of what we're looking at right now. But in areas that we've highlighted that there might be some flow issues, there's potential that you might need to do some evaluation and potentially do a project to increase flow through specifically the older parts of the village. The last kind of piece that's going to be mentioned here is there's a transmission main. You have an old 12-inch transmission main, and there are very few houses that are kind of off of the transmission main, which is not an ideal situation as far as getting water done goes. There's a project to extend basically a small diameter line from the new transmission main over to these few residents, and that again comes down to kind of the length that you want to go. I know that we just talked about how small transmission main sizes are bad, but when you're only serving one or two houses, this is how they all start. Whenever you're serving one or two houses, it's okay to do it. The problem is when you add a bunch of houses to them, they become problematic. But best bang for your buck, as far as that would be, to extend a very small diameter, 3-inch or so line to the one or two affected houses that are kind of off of that old transmission main.
Where is that?
Where is that? That is coming off of the old transmission main. I don't remember the exact houses, but it's in like the Wall Farm Road.
It's off of Wall Farm Road.
Wall Farm Road.
Oh, okay.
So, you know the little old pump station we have that
Yep.
hasn't worked in forever off Lafarge Street?
Yep,
It cuts right through there.
okay,
Yeah,
Toward Wall Farm.
stuff like that.
okay.
Places like that.
I just couldn't put the face to the name.
So those are the high-level highlights on your water system, and those again will be better fleshed out and better defined for you in report form. But I just wanted to give you a heads up as far as we're working on this, and this is what's coming. Anybody have any questions on the water system or anything that you are personally concerned with the water system that was not mentioned here tonight?
When do you expect the report to come out, Jeff?
Fair question. Beginning of January, I guess, is when I'll have the finalized report ready to go. I'm behind where I was hoping to be, if I'm being honest with you.
Understood?
Wastewater collection system is the other half of this. There's less to report here. You have 13 miles of wastewater collection lines, and this basically goes down to where there are some known trouble spots. With wastewater, everything is by gravity in your system, with the exception of you have a pump station kind of out in Bells, which pumps over, and then you have your main pump station, which gets everything up to your wastewater treatment facility. And as far as things go, it's in pretty good condition. You've taken significant efforts over the years to separate out from the combined sewer overflow system, and there's pretty regular maintenance done to make sure that if there are any issues, they're addressed pretty quickly. So the focus here right now is just to address on those known trouble spots and potentially put a plan in place to do more of a routine televising program. You can put a camera down the line, see if there's any issues. Anytime you have an older line, specifically, you have some sections of an old transit type of pipe that could be a problem. Just kind of making sure that you're not having excessive root infiltration or any kind of cracking or anything like that in those specific areas. So the wastewater collection area is going to be a little bit later. It's going to be mainly on looking for future problems and making sure that you don't have any problems. The ones that we have identified to date, anywhere where you have a flatter sewer, these are not easily addressed and are kind of easily more maintained than they are changed. It's much more expensive to go build a new sloped sewer than it is to go clean the flatter sewer that you have on a regular basis. So kind of building in planned maintenance for the areas. Your maintenance crews know that they have them and they already do this, but kind of adding it into the plans so that everybody's on board. Specifically King Street and Linden Ave are two of those streets that they kind of know that they get to, and they kind of do that for. Less of a routine maintenance issue and more of a probably have to do something about this in the next 2 to 5 years is root intrusion issues. Anytime you have an older pipe, specifically a lot of time vitrified clay is pretty prone to this. It's built in segments, and the segments are all very rigid. So if you have any sort of differential settling or anything like that, the joints open up and you can get roots that kind of come in right through those joints. And just knowing where you have roots, there's a number of options you can do. What we typically recommend is they can kind of go through and cut the roots with like a cutter, and then they can line the inside of a pipe. It's called a cured in place liner. So there'll be a section in there that talks about the cost on that, and kind of what that looks like as far as the streets that would be recommended for. That's not an immediate need, but that's something that would be good to start planning for, so that you know that you have some lining in the system, specifically in those older segments of sewer. And then there was one area where it was not an interconnection with a storm drain, but there was a storm drain issue on Pine Street, which is kind of separate from this report. And I know that you've had a significant amount of work done on your stormwater stuff, but just noting it where we can, that there is some stormwater stuff that you're trying to do as well. Specifically on Pine Street, it came up that was an area where there was an interconnection area. And then newer areas that might have some problems, such as Bosworth and Winchurst Court, looking at those and just seeing if there's anything that needs to be done to kind of improve those and put those into the plan. So wastewater collection, there's a list, there's some recommended steps. You're in a pretty good spot in that you don't have like a plethora, you don't have a ton of manholes that have issues or anything like that. Overall, this was your original wastewater collection system. You had just the center of the village. And this infrastructure is actually holding up quite well, given how old it is and kind of where it's at. It's kind of your more developed area of town. In the interim, you've kind of built that all off. The area that we just looked at is kind of right here, and you've expanded the wastewater collection system considerably since your original one. And a lot of this is in really good condition. The high priority, high concern things that we'd be very worried about, that if it were to fail, you'd have a major issue, would be your siphon. Your siphon's in really good condition. That's been dye tested on a yearly basis, and that continues to look good. You don't have high infiltration and eye flow that ever is received at the plant to the degree that other plants have received it. So there's nothing here that's a super red flag that we're really worried about looking at your wastewater collection system. But what is there, we want to kind of help put some numbers to it and kind of help with prioritizing. So that's my quick spiel on what we've done, what the purpose of it, and what the report is that you're going to receive. Does anybody have any other questions or anything else that I can kind of help address?
It sounds like a value-added service.
Happy to be working with the village on any project like that.
It really does. I mean, you know, for me, I never would have thought, you know, talking about the wastewater and the sewer lines and, you know, I mean, if there are areas that we need to focus on eventually in the next 2 to 5 years, you know,
Good to know.
we know what they are, but maybe we hold off on paving if there's paving involved as well. You know, things like that could save us some money over the years.
So I owe you guys a report that is what it will do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Can you
Jeff.
flip me a copy of the PowerPoint though?
100%.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Jeff, hold on a second.
no, we're good.
You're good? Okay. All right.
All right, number 11, moving right along, Swanton Village Grant Project Update with grant specialist Heidi Bridge.
That was a great
Extraordinaire.
segue
Extraordinaire.
into my
Extraordinaire.
stuff. Yes,
Heidi, do you mind putting your name tag up toward the camera, please? They ordered that, Diane ordered that special for you, so let's
Specialist.
utilize it. No, toward the camera. We know who you are.
Sideways.
Thank you. All right.
Well,
Thank you.
Diane, would you be so kind and run that? Yeah, let me try. For me. Well, thank you for making time on the agenda for me.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I had a couple of false starts and was ready to come in a few times, and then other things came up. So it's been a while. And the first half of this is just gonna be a recap to just close out some of the projects that were mentioned in the past. So we're gonna go quickly through these just to get you up to speed. Everyone in the community and surrounding communities was aware of our B6 repair project. And it turned out to be a great success. And the bottom line shows what the impact to the village was, and that was 16,000 and change for expenses that were not covered. AOT really came through at the last minute and gave us that second grant, so $400,000. And that puts you in a position to have a reliable, safe bridge until AOT can come back and talk about a replacement or rehab with you. The second one was the highway safety grant, so Dean's team went through the village and replaced some pretty critical signage with reflective signs, and we did crosswalks and put some safety poles in instead of the breakable ones. So stormwater outlet on Winters Court, that was last year's grant and aid. And basically, I should have updated that photo. You now have a beautifully stabilized bank where the water comes out.
It's all still fine.
It's fabulous. Yep, they did a great job in a really tight spot. Had to get in there and cut trees. So that one is closed out. The Missisquoi water line is just barely completed. So that one is also one for the books, a very interesting also project. These safety purchases, this is one that Lynn works on with each department as she's going through the budget and identifies needs. And then those are purchased, and your insurance company gives you $5,000 towards your $5,000 investment. To help you purchase those safety items. The whole village is also aware of the lead service line inventory project. This was a state mandated project that required all water systems in Vermont to identify any existing lead connections on the system side or on the customer side. So that was completed, and the village turned out very well. There were none on the system side. There were 3, I believe, that were lead, and then there were 4 also that were galvanized requiring replacement. So out of the number of connections that you have, that was a pretty great number. So Aldridge and Elliott was instrumental in finishing that, and that was all covered through a grant from the Drinking Water Fund. The upgrade, I don't have as much of an update for you as I would like. They are working on the design. It is in the state's environmental review, and they anticipate coming back to the village this winter to talk to you about proposed options. So whether that means a full replacement or rehab, they'll let you know that, and then the village will have some decisions to make at that time. Please feel free to stop me at any time if you have questions on any of this. The emergency generator, the sad update on that is that although when we applied, they were pretty confident that they would be able to help us with that project and that they might even be able to cover 100% of the cost. Several other events in the state caused that to be no longer the case, and we were not allowed to even submit a full application. So that was denied. We are hopeful that in applying for a different grant for the hydro facility, we'll be able to lump this emergency generator in.
How much was that generator?
We were applying for, well, this piece was the benefit cost analysis, was funded by a READY grant, but we applied for a FEMA emergency generator grant for, I think it was $80,000. We also completed a municipal energy audit, and then were given the opportunity to apply for the construction funding, and Swanton Village was not awarded any of that funding. You were not considered a high enough burden community because you do a great job of keeping the user fees low. So And there is an existing mini municipal energy resilience program grant. That's a $4,000 grant that the Energy Committee is managing just for outreach events to the community. And you have another grant and aid. That's an annual opportunity. And this year they are only offering $6,000. Again, I think there's a lot of competing pressures within AOT and the state's budget in general due to some of the flooding disasters. So we were offered $9,000 last year. This year the community was only offered $6,000. Dean brought us to the banks below Webster Terrace where there is a stormwater outlet. So that outfall has a lot of erosion around it. It's pretty much a raw bank. So the fix would be to do what they basically did on Winter Court, bring in some stone, stabilize the area so that the waters aren't putting so much sediment into the river. So we're waiting for approval of that concept, and then they intend to put that, to go to construction on that in the spring. And that is one of the grants that Public Works does the work, and we're able to use their work and equipment as your match, which is a great deal. There are a few of the downtown safety improvement grants. The first one is your Merchants Row, which is the oldest. That was a grant that was applied for prior to me, and that was to implement recommendations that came out of a study that was also done prior to my arrival. And I think there are people in the room that participated in that process. So the village applied and they got money to modify the parking and ADA access to Merchants Row, and to modify the intersection at First Street and Grand Avenue. And that's a $300,000 grant with a local $75,000 match, and that is in preliminary design with the state, working into final design. So there will be another meeting on that one, a site visit at to show some of the challenges at First and Grand Avenue intersection for vehicles, and as well as Merchants Row. And then the second one is more recent. That is for modifications to Church Street, and that would be changing that to a one-way street and installing bike lanes. And the intent was to keep some of the traffic from going back into that five-leg intersection to reduce incidents of crash and to make it a little bit safer for pedestrians. That's the focus of that whole study, was to find ways to make it a little easier for bikes and pedestrians to get around safely, and also to allow vehicles to navigate safely. Everyone knows that's a very dangerous intersection. Jeff just reported on your infrastructure capital planning project, and that was a almost $14,000 grant with a $1,500 cash match required. So we'll be closing that one out soon. You're well underway with your wastewater facility. A lot of progress has been made on that already. And there are a few grants involved in that. Aldridge, Elliott, and Lynn are managing funding from the Clean Water Fund. And there is a CRRP funding grant for $800,000 as well. And that will continue through 2025. The Riviera, we are, contrary to popular belief, we are making progress on that. And I think we just received approval, confirmation from state archaeology on the plan for moving forward. And Habitat for Humanity was working with Regional Planning Commission to try and come to an agreement about what is possible on that site for some affordable housing units. And remediation on First Street, 124 First Street, the vacant property next door is also continuing. Some additional testing will be happening this winter and spring. And then cleanup will be folded in with redevelopment of the property when that occurs. So do you have any questions on any of the older project updates?
A lot.
It is a lot. A lot happened.
The new stuff yet?
What's that?
Have you ever even gotten into the news?
No, this is quite.
No, there was a lot going on. I think Dean felt the pressure many times. He takes the brunt of or he manages the project for most of these grants, so there's a lot of moving pieces. So in progress is a grant for paving, and that will cover repaving the section of Lake Street at the intersection with South River Street, over the tracks and up to the Middle Road intersection, and then all of Linda Avenue. And your match will come out of any work that the department does, but it will mostly be hired out, so Dean anticipates using his paving allocation from his regular budget as match, completing that project all at once.
So just, which make a note, that's gonna use up most of the paving budget for next year.
All of the paving budget.
Pretty much all of it. Yep.
So you maximize that amount in your
Yeah.
paving budget,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
It's
But it's
a good-
necessary,
It's a
it's
win-win.
needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, speaking of needed, this is an impressive image of your Grand Avenue sidewalk. So,
Pretty bad.
it's pretty bad. It's not really navigable by anyone with any mobility issues at all. So, Dean has taken on the project. His team will be working on that project, and their time and equipment will serve as the match. It's a $75,000 grant with an equal required match, and they will be working on that project for several weeks this summer, and that will be quite an improvement. It will be a new, wider ADA compliant sidewalk.
So you said that's 100% match on sweat equity on that side for the grant? For that.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch
You
it.
said that was a 100% match.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you'll have to provide 75,000 in kind. But with Dean's team, he thought that that was a 5 or 6 week.
How far will it get us?
It depends. We had to use state funding numbers for our estimate. So with using those numbers, we anticipated making it as far as the Veterans Park.
Okay.
We think we can go further.
Yeah, I was
We
gonna say,
suspect we
I've
can
heard
go further.
but yeah.
Okay.
It's another note for the trustees, so the set aside in the event that we cannot meet match with in-kind, we're not gonna prioritize other sidewalk projects in the event that we must use that money for match,
Gotcha.
just to make sure.
Yep,
It's
no,
okay.
that makes sense.
Well, it'd be great to get one side of the street accessible again.
And that's your busiest segment,
Right.
according to
Yes.
safe routes to school numbers.
Yep.
That's the main corridor. So the village has a road erosion inventory, that's a requirement from the state to be compliant with municipal roads general permits. So all communities are obligated to address a certain number of stormwater issues every year. Your inventory is old, and so we've applied for a grant, which also is a very reduced amount from what it used to be. We got a $2,600 grant, and we have to provide a $668 match for that, which can also be met with labor and equipment. And that should give us a few estimates. The value in that road erosion inventory is that's the designs and estimates that we use to then apply for stormwater grants. So your grant aids or any other stormwater funding, you'll have in hand what you need to.
That's for that little brook going through Greenwich Street there. For that little.
That's not what this, so we have applied to that for, there was funding that was left after the causeway removal did not happen. Money went back into the Clean Water Missisquoi Bay Fund that was supposed to stay in this area. So we have applied for a project on Greenwich Street and on Grand Avenue where it comes out. Yeah, to stabilize that area as well. So I have no idea if we will get that money or not,
But that's separate
Fingers
from
crossed.
this road erosion.
what this will do is look at new projects. So none of the projects we've discussed, they will go around and look at, is there new erosion? Are there further stormwater outlets on the riverbank that could be stabilized? Any way that they can reduce your impact to the rivers and lakes.
Dean's gonna be busy next summer.
Say what?
Dean's gonna be busy next summer.
He's gonna be busy, he's already said no more for next summer. So, it's coming, Adam, we're gonna talk about 3-acre stormwater permits. We currently have 2 grants, one for 121st Street, this property. And the purpose of these grants is to help communities with the design to implement further improvements because the 3-acre stormwater permit criteria increased. The expectation of your ability to process stormwater is higher now than it was when you got the permit to begin with. So new treatments have to be implemented. The 49,999 is for the design process. And there are hints from the state that there will be funding for construction at some point in the future, but when is unknown. And the exact same grant was received for the Jones Fork 3-acre stormwater design, which will be a much bigger project. And the only update that I have to offer is that they are working on it, they'll be working on it through the winter, but no real groundwork can happen through the winter. So they'll be back in the spring to pick it up, and hopefully it will be completed next summer. And then there would have to be discussions with the landowners and the village to come to conclusion about what you would want to do. At that point, then we could apply for funding that may or may not become available. So, not the update you would like, I understand.
It is what it is.
It is what it is at this point, that's right. The village was awarded for 2 level 3 EV chargers, which will be placed in your existing municipal parking lot at 74 Merchants Row, the end of the Merchants Row businesses. And that we applied for $160,000, which is what we assume we've gotten, but they have not confirmed that yet. So there is a 5% match that is required. We are able to use in-kind labor and equipment if that is something that the Public Works Department can be involved in. And your electric department will be involved in it as well, so you should be able to meet that match. And we're working with a $10,000 grant through the Conservation District to put a dry hydrant at the Leon Babby Fishing Access on Route 7, heading out of town, out of the village. And that's a collaboration between the village and the town. The Public Works Department will do the work, and they'll be utilizing some of the town's larger equipment to make that happen. And that's gonna be a great boon to the fire department because they can respond to fires on the southeastern side of town without needing to come back into the village, pull through a busy school district area and village area. They can just pull in there and fill up, and they'll have a quicker time to be able to do that. So it's gonna be a great thing, and that is in review by NRCS. We have to get the design approved, and then they should be able to start working on that next summer. It will likely be a late summer project when the water is lower to make that a little bit easier. And the next slide is a summary of what's open that we know, what we have. So you're looking at a little over $4 million in open grants. And some of those other grants, we don't know what the value is at this time. They will be determined, such as your bridge upgrade and further work on the Riviera and the Brownsfield program. NRPC has been the support for the Brownsfield program, giving us the funding to get the assessments done on both properties at no cost. When you move into the cleanup, that is when you're obligated to pay your 25%. Unless they have a little bit of extra funding, then they can adjust that upwards and cover more if they're able, but it all depends on how many projects are going on at the same time. So that is the end of open grants. We have a few other applications in the works. We submitted a second application for EV chargers to replace 2 level 2 chargers here at this facility. We still have not heard about that. They explained that they were gonna focus all of their efforts on the level 3 chargers, get those out and implemented, and then they were going to look at doing level 2s. So it's been a very long time. Hopefully they will give us some information on that soon. And other applications that are in the works, your hydro plant needs a few things, including the emergency generator we discussed earlier. They also need to replace 4 exciters. So we are looking at how will the village do that all at once, over time. And one of the Department of Energy grants that's available would cover 20% of the cost, that's all. So we're calculating a $300,000 grant if you were to replace them all at one time. It's a big project. We're making a little bit of headway on getting me some information so I can be a little better versed on hydro. It's not something I have a depth of knowledge in, so trying to get a little bit further up that steep incline of knowledge on hydro. And hopefully we'll be able to submit that grant. I am currently on a deadline to finish a FEMA grant, Assistance to Firefighter Grants, to fund the installation of a diesel exhaust system that's vehicle mounted, which would capture the diesel exhaust from the fire trucks, reducing the risk to your firefighters of some serious complications from exposure. That's due on the 20th. There is a municipal planning grant, the same grant that funded the infrastructure study that Jeff reported on. And this could be used to do a study for the Carter Hill line, the distribution line relocation. Dwayne is interested in relocating that line because it is cross-country. It's very vulnerable from trees, storms. So when there are problems, it's very difficult to get out there. And some of it you need an off-road vehicle to get to. So it's a vulnerability. We'd like to look at what makes sense. Relocating that roadside, burying it in place, or what's the best bang for the buck. And so that municipal planning grant could be used to evaluate that. We did apply for one Department of Energy grant for that previously. We didn't have enough information to justify what our decision would be. So this would be a good step forward to put you in place to get a grant. The Greenwich and Grand Avenue stormwater issues we discussed a few minutes ago. I don't know what the price tag on those would be. We're working with Regional Planning Commission on that to see if we can access that Missisquoi Bay Clean Funds water for that. There is also a opportunity we're looking at to address some tree maintenance issues in the village green. It's a $20,000 grant, which would not solve all of your tree problems, but it might help you to achieve a few of them. So we met with 5 contractors in the village green to discuss what they thought were the highest priorities. We had originally started just looking at conifers. There's also some deciduous trees that need some work. They're looking pretty sad. So they were going to prioritize for us what they thought was the most significant and see what we could afford to do. And I'll just say no trees would be removed without a professional opinion from an arborist, that was the best thing to do for the trees. Looking at another grant from T-Mobile, hometown grant to resurface Marble Mill pickleball courts. That's a $50,000 opportunity. That's also due shortly. A lot of these are due the end of the month. And the last one on this list is one that's also the next item on your agenda. The village has an opportunity to apply for another large transportation alternatives grant, which would be focused on the recommendations from your safety study, focusing on Canada Street, improving ADA access to the businesses, and improving the crosswalks in that area, eliminating a left turn lane to reduce the number of people pulling off the street at the same time. Left turns would still be possible, but from the same lane as a right-hand turn and straight on. So it would be one of the last major pieces of your downtown study safety recommendations to make that 5-leg intersection safer for all travelers. So that would be up to the village if they are able to move forward with that grant, because there would be, if we applied for the full amount, which it seems that the project would take, it would require $150,000 grant match for that project. But it should be noted that these projects with the Transportation Alternatives program are federally funded and they take at least 3 to 5 years to complete. Same as your Merchants Row, you applied for that in 2022, and it's coming to final design now. Your Church Street project, you got 2024, probably won't go to construction until 2026. So there's time for the village to prepare for that match if you choose to move forward. And that is it for me.
Fantastic.
Thank
That's
you.
a lot
Thank
of
you.
great projects to get done.
Question?
Questions, anybody out there? No? It's,
Yeah, no, I kudos.
yeah,
Yeah.
the D6
You know,
bridge,
I
the
mean,
water
you got-
line.
4 mil, that's a.
You got 4 mil plus another mil plus 10 or 12 that you've killed off in the last 2 to 3 years, and it's
I would say it's very much a team effort.
Yeah.
You know, we're not able to do that unless your public works department can make it happen, or your wastewater plant, or, you know, you have a very good team. They're all interested in supporting each other and crossing the finish line for
it's great about the
improvements.
village.
It's very nice.
Absolutely
Very nice.
amazing.
No, nice job.
Very nice. Thank you.
Well done, but don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Okay. Moving right along. Number 12, approved letter of support for transportation alternatives grant for Canada Street streetscape.
So refresh the memory.
So Heidi kind of gave you the synopsis. I think probably should start with, I can remind you of a suggested motion. We can have a first and second, then a discussion. Is that what you would?
That's what I'm asking.
All right. The Swanton Village Trustees approve a letter of support to seek a transportation alternatives grant for downtown village improvements to include Canada Street. This grant may include funding in the amount of up to $600,000 with a required 20% match up to $150,000.
Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second to approve a motion to sign a letter of support for a transportation grant for Canada Street streetscape. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Question,
Good. Go ahead.
when would this possibly take place, the construction? 2, 3 years?
Well, the application would be due the end of the month, and then it would take several months to hear a decision, get a contract. You would start the project probably the middle of 2025, and then, as I said, it's a 3 to 5 year project. So
Yeah.
your first year is just working on design and fine tuning it, getting permitting, going through the AOT review process for the design, and then it would go out to bid.
So we have
So
several years to put pennies away for it, right?
several years to put away allocations towards your match.
Likely construction, 27. If I were a betting man, it would extend to 28.
27 or 28, so 2 or 3 years from now.
Unless it's somehow fast-tracked more than the last 2 iterations, which will take 3 years. So it could be end of 26, part of 27 is possible.
And we would have to come up with the funds by construction time 27.
We pay a percentage of the match for each section of the project. So if there's a finite, say, I'll make it up, a small contract with whomever the engineer at the ready who is selected, likely VHB, because they've done the entire downtown and for continuity of this project, say that's 30,000. We have to pay a percentage of that from the beginning. So it is 20% of all cost. So it's very small upfront in year 1, and then a continuation from there.
Incremental.
It is certainly incremental, with the vast majority occurring during construction.
So just thinking outside the box, if we were able to resolve the local option tax, that would be an avenue to assist in paying this.
If we were to secure the local option tax in 26 and beyond, this is exactly the avenue that other comparable communities are using to pay for exactly these types of things. And to put it in perspective, when you're enjoying the downtown businesses, many of whom are here, while people are visiting them and paying that 1%, that 1% is going back into the community improvements that are critical to the long-term viability of the downtown.
And takes opportunity of everything that people hate about the amount of traffic that comes through, gives an opportunity to turn that around a little bit in our favor, economically versus looking at local property taxes to fund these improvement projects. So
Yes.
kind of put some in, get some back, keep growing.
In fairness, no crystal ball. You could put local option tax on and it might not pass.
That's true.
So you have to prepare for that possibility.
I was gonna say that. I mean, we could go into this planning, this final phase, saying we're gonna cover it with local option tax, but if we put the local option tax on the ballot 2026 and people say no, then we still, having tonight made a decision, we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna pay for that if
Right.
local option tax fails, right? So we need to have a backup plan to local option tax if we're going to move ahead with this, which, I mean, nobody here at the table wants to raise the taxes, any more than we have to, but at the same time, I think we're doing a disservice to our business and to revitalizing our downtown if we don't move ahead with this final portion. You know, I mean, I would like taxes to be as flatlined as anybody else, but at the same time, it's a disservice to the revitalization that so many people work so hard for.
On the other hand, if we do move ahead with this, we have some time to prepare.
We do.
And in my mind, that's a little dilemma. Because let's say we don't have the AOT, the option tax. Then we have to find the funding somehow or give the grant back. Is that correct?
Yeah, we would find the funding, we would have to, I think we discussed is adding money to the highway
That's right.
budget or having a separate line item that voters could vote on or doing a bond. Those were the three things that we had discussed.
Or the fourth is, you know you have a finite amount of money for paving and or sidewalks, and
And
while
we
you
take
never
that.
wanted the for maintenance, you can take that.
Yeah.
Yes,
You could take that to meet your match, and it would meet your match.
Yes, you could.
Oh, you're absolutely right, it would.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that idea too.
Any one of these options, I think, make it possible.
Yeah, I like the option of taking the paving and the sidewalk, the already existing money that's already padded into the or not padded, but already in the highway budget and using that if we don't have LOT to fall back on. I like that idea.
And of course, discussions will take place in
Yeah.
the future, depending on how things go. And I think that people will approve it.
But I would like to hear from our business owners.
Yeah, and I feel a little bad having my back to them. Move out of the way here.
Gordon, Darcy, any thoughts or?
Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. I think the most important thing that any town can do to help their businesses and help their downtown overall is invest in things like you're talking about, investing in the sidewalks. You don't think it, when St. Albans did it, you know, I didn't really think much of that was going to be the greatest investment to put taxpayers' dollars to, but I think after it was all said and done, I think the communities that invest in their ADA, their just the walkability of the downtown, being able to put outdoor seatings out in front of Darcy's or in front of the bistro, being able to just see a vibrant downtown, I think is a wise investment that you should really consider. And if my math, if I understand Heidi and Bill right, you're making $150,000 investment, but you're getting $750,000 of work. So I think when you look at it in that light, I think it would be a wise decision for you to really consider that would be something to put your money to if you could get that all done and get Merchants Row done, get in front of Canada Street done, get some crosswalks done, and you made a $150,000 investment, and 5 years from now you had $750,000 worth of work. I think it's very worth considering.
I agree completely. The biggest complaint that I have with customers coming in the store is it's hard to get back and forth. I wanna shop all the downtown stores. It's hard to get around, there's too much traffic, there's no lights to push the buttons. I can't get in your store because there's no ramp. That's the biggest gripe. And if these changes come, then everybody can come. And now that our downtown is thriving, I think this is the perfect time to put all our energy there.
And we own the business where the building that Darcy's in and the bistro building, you know, the sidewalk is too narrow to put a handicap ramp in front of Darcy's because it has to be 3 foot, whatever the dimensions, and you can't get around, so and it would be a makeshift metal handicap ramp. You know, this would give us a chance to bring all the sidewalks up, get access everywhere. Right now, the access for the bistro is, I don't think there's a spot in front. It's in our parking lot with a crosswalk that leads up to the deck, which gets someone up a ramp. You know, it's not ideal, but it is access. But this would give us access to all the front of the buildings, including the auto parts store.
Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? So,
There's a motion on the floor.
there
Yes.
is. So we had a first, and we had a second, and then we had a discussion. So next is all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. To approve letter of support for transportation alternatives grant for Canada Street.
Now, did we have to sign that?
Diane, do you have the letter still?
We do.
That was a long letter.
Bring it over.
Not very long.
Thank you for the input.
Thank you for your support of our downtown.
Yeah, these are coming out.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Really starting to look nice
Wow.
over there.
Yeah, it does, it does. It's the painter, it's good here.
2009 or something.
Oh, that's right. Take one down, pass one down.
Ready to go blind here.
Oh, golly, gee.
Yep.
Don't lose the paper.
Don't lose the paper.
They want to stick around for this.
Draft number 1.
It's on by thread, yeah.
Ready? Number 13, 2025 budget.
Alright, so I'm sorry I didn't get this stuff to you earlier, but I was doing changes right up till this afternoon.
Okay.
So, things that hit the budget completely, in wages, we've built in a 4% COLA. Health insurance, the employees are now gonna be paying 8% towards their premium. Property insurance went up on average about 15%. Workman's comp insurance increased. Our experience modification went from 0.77 to 1.31. That was an increase of $97,000. And we will see that high rate for 3 years.
Each year.
The water and sewer revenues in here are not updated yet, because there's a sheet that shows you where they need to go. Health insurance, our premiums increased 9%.
How much?
Which,
Nine.
nine, which was less than what we thought they were gonna go up.
Yeah, me too.
You said
Another-
less than 9%?
It went up 9%.
Okay,
But that's
Which is
less.
less than,
Right, okay.
I was expecting double digits.
yeah,
That one's too.
close.
We have a support contract with Cogsdale for our billing and accounting software. That saw a fairly significant increase this year. It goes up every year, but, I mean, we're knocking at over $60,000 for that contract for a year.
And that's all the software that we use throughout.
That's just our billing and our accounting software. And they hit you for, we have little things like we're working on them with the mapping file for the AMI integration.
Yep.
And that's an extra fee on top of this. So, they get you every which way that's not outside of calling and saying something's not working right.
Right.
So is that 60,000 more for the software licensing?
And it's
Just-
about a $60,000 overall.
Fine.
And it's split amongst all the departments. Everybody pays
Yep.
a share of it. I still need to sit down with electric, for Dwayne's portion, the line crew's portion, and with Matt for the PD stuff. So those budgets I'm not as solid with as the other ones. So I guess I will start, the first fund is electric. The revenue portion is still a moving target. As we get through the rest of the month, I will have a little bit better feel where we're gonna land at year end, to budget for next year. I will tell you, as this budget stands right now, it's a $725,000 loss for 2025. So, once we close out, 24, I'll be pushing forward to VEPSA, like, where do you think we're gonna be? These numbers are probably not gonna prove to need a rate case for 25. Most definitely, if we're pretty close on track to budget, 26 will definitely. I already have VEPSA working on, if we do something next door, what will that do to our rates?
And the loss was generation or manufacturers?
This doesn't have anything to do with our, like, any loss of generation, that's not factored in.
Okay.
Because VEPSA would roll that into our power supply budget. So purchase power, the budget from VEPSA is a little bit less than the budget for 2024, which is a little concerning for me. But on the flip side, year to date, and if I look at annualizing it, we're gonna come in under budget most likely. So then it kind of, sounds a little more reasonable, but I always get nervous when they reduce the power budget. On page 2, excuse me, the big thing, about halfway down, maintenance of rights of way, that is your tree trimming budget. We have a lot of ash trees in our system
Oh,
that we have discovered this year. So right now, we're $51,000 over budget. Because there were trees that, Dwayne refers to them as danger trees. It's trees that we aren't confident would withstand a storm and not come down and take down poles and wires. So we hired out to have cut the trees that he was concerned about, other trees that he wasn't as concerned about. He's waiting until 2025. But we increased the budget from 100,000 to 150,000, just because we've got a lot of ash trees that are been hit by the emerald ash borer. Let's see. Then everything else, pretty much, you'll see under, well, not quite halfway down, engineering. I put in $40,000, and that was, as Heidi alluded to, she's gonna be working with somebody on the hydro grant process, so that's money for that person. The,
What page is that?
under engineering is 40,000,
Page 2?
page 3.
Oh,
I
three,
put-
sorry.
Page three.
Yeah, I didn't, I'm sorry, we should
About,
label my trees, not
A
quite
third
halfway
to
down.
halfway down.
Yep.
That's
I gotcha.
contracting
I
with
see it.
Celeste Fay that we talked about last
Yeah,
time from
yeah.
Fay Consulting.
Okay.
And then a couple lines down from that, we've got our VEPSA fees, which is the amount that it's our load ratio share of VEPSA's budget. And then, the renewable energy credits, which is, you've probably heard Bill talk about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. That's, $313,000 for next year, which is up a little bit from last year, or the year we're in. The VEPSA AMI project, that is gonna be, the 43,000 is our, like, annual maintenance for that. And the capital side is the almost 900,000 for the project, for next year. And you've seen these numbers for a couple of years, because AMI was supposed to already be in play at this point.
Yep.
The GIS mapping for VEPSA, that is the project, where we've got all our poles and wires mapped on a tablet. It's on our computers too, but the line crew can actually, they're out in the field, they can pull it up on their tablet. They can make changes in the field, you know, if they're changing out poles or fuses or, and it updates the system. And that system will talk with our billing system. So as customers are moving in, moving out, or we're changing meters in and out, and actually our AMI meter change out will run through this also. It'll automatically update the GIS software. So the line crew's gonna know they're going to, you know, so-and-so's house, and if that person next month is a different person, it's, you know, it's already gonna be updated.
We're gonna know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. I still have to talk to Dwayne about like our transportation expenses, cause we're over budget there, to see what he needs for next year. I put the higher amount in for property taxes because our taxes went up significantly. And that's it for the electric department, and the budget right now is showing, for major changes, I should say. It is showing almost a $725,000 loss. Does anybody, after that quick, I know you guys need time to digest this, so,
This is the
Well,
first
this is a-
discussion as
yeah.
a reminder.
Oh,
and then as you guys have time to look at it, like, something comes up, shoot me an email, shoot me a phone call, come in and see me.
Yep.
And we can dive in deeper. But does anybody have any like questions in that fund as I've just run through it?
Nope.
Does anybody out in the audience? It's kind of a quick synopsis. It's hard because I live these numbers all day, so some
So
stuff
she just thinks we all know
just,
that.
just seems second nature to me.
She's like, yeah, you know that $40,000, it's right there.
Oh, boy, it's overwhelming.
So then, oh, and one thing I didn't touch on is on the first page, you'll see almost 3/4 of the way down, maintenance of hydro plant.
Yep.
We went way over budget this year, to the tune of over $200,000. And for 2025, we're budgeting almost $184,000. So, and 100,000 of that is a turbine generator cleaning and testing that Dan wants.
You blame Unit 1 and Unit 2 for that.
Yeah, thank
Yep.
you, other two.
So onto the water department.
Still in process, right?
So the big items on here. So we're up, like salaries are up, and you gotta remember, we've now got 2 full-time people there.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that went into effect the year we're in, but you'll, you know, so you're seeing it forward now, it's double what we had as far as benefits and everything. Where's their benefits? So their maintenance of water plant has stayed really low.
So the testing looks like it took a wee bit of a hit.
Yeah. Chemicals, we've reduced that budget a little bit. Maintenance of lines,
You've increased a little bit.
yeah, we've,
35,000?
maintenance of lines went up about 4,500.
Yep.
Maintenance of lines labor,
Labor.
Dean wanted me to hold it, even though we didn't spend it all this year. He wanted me to hold that budget number, pretty close to what we had budgeted. So Dean's got so many projects, I had a hard time allocating, cause as he's going, he goes, you know, that wage number needs to stay there, and he said it, and then, oh, this one needs to be increased. I had more wants than I had salary to disperse to, which is, you know, then I could actually shuffle things a little bit,
Right.
but it just goes to show that he's got a lot on his plate for 2025.
And this is, we've talked about this briefly, this is the outlier for Public Works budget. You know, instead of, it's just got so many layers and it's involved in so many parts of this, that next year we're gonna do a much better effort at tracking his entire crew's time to ensure that we appropriately charge water, sewer for those costs.
So when I do the budgets, so Dean's salaries and benefits hit 5 funds.
Right.
Hits everybody but electric. So when I'm budgeting, I have to look at where they spent their time, or where he thinks they're gonna spend their time, and I have to go in and change the percentage for the budget. Their timesheets actually reflect actually where they worked. But for the budgets, I have to see, okay, where have they been working, and so we've got a number to
next
go
year,
from.
Yeah.
Right.
So anytime, like I run it and then I'm like, you know, oh, we need to put X amount more in this fund and not in this fund. It's changing not only wages in whatever line items, but it is social security tax, it's the child care tax, it's health insurance, life insurance, dental insurance, retirement, all of that stuff. I have to split in 5 funds. So it's not as easy as like just going in and changing one number
Right.
and making sure that it all matches still to my wage spreadsheet. So there's a lot that goes into this piece. Didn't really have much, the water department's really kind of staying, you know, where it's been. And obviously, we'll see an increase in the depreciation expense for 25 because the new water line's in service.
Got it, okay.
On the sewer fund,
So am I to understand that this,
Yep.
the water fund is currently at a loss as well?
yeah, that's a budget, right now it's 213,000. So, I will, when you guys go to adopt budgets, I will recommend that water and sewer rates go up for 25,
Okay.
because we know in 26, the bonds will come into effect.
Right.
So instead of doing a really big one, we're gonna probably do it in 2 steps.
Gradual.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so I'm most likely looking at where the numbers landed for water and sewer. I'm not gonna recommend you jump completely,
Right.
you know, because both those funds still have healthy bank accounts.
Mhm.
So it's not like it's not like we're strapped for cash in those 2 departments.
Right.
So we can afford to kind of kind of soften the
The blow.
impact, yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
In the sewer, even though
Sorry for my reaction, actually.
even though we've got a very large sewer plant project, there is still a lot of maintenance that goes on in there. So their maintenance budget is increasing from 36,000 to 108. The biggest piece on that is, and I need to talk to Jason a little more, but he's updating the UV cords, which is 48,000 of that 108.
Right.
But I really need to have him walk me through what it does, so I can make sure it's not a capital.
Oh.
Because if it's a capital, it's
yeah,
not
okay.
here.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
I
maybe
really,
we can depreciate it.
right,
Yeah.
so I wanna have that, circle back with that conversation with him.
It makes high quality H2O at the end of the process.
Yep.
That's what it does.
Shrink it right out of the.
So there's that one. Chemicals, we're holding that budget. He's been under in chemicals so far this year, so hopefully he stays that way. So the other thing that's in this budget is the stormwater costs, and those are increasing. The Jones Court stormwater evaluation is in here. Obviously, insurances, benefits and stuff are increasing. And so right now, he has a budgeted loss of 115,000. And then the next one is highway. So highway's got the sidewalk grant in here. You'll note, with the highway in the general fund, there's several grants that Heidi is doing that she and I sat down once. I need to circle back, make sure that now that I've got the numbers down on paper, that they're where they really should be, and the grant revenue to, the known grant revenue to the known expenses are right, and that I didn't put too much down or not enough down. I just found one error that I had not fixed, and that was the bridge expense. I didn't have that taken out of there. So that makes it a lot better.
Oh, where's that?
On that first page, I just noticed, I thought I had taken it down.
You talking about
taken it out
maintenance
right
of the
there.
bridge or?
Oh, my God. That's monopoly error in our favor.
The 200K.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like I
That's
took
a
the revenue
big
out, but I
difference.
forgot to take the expense out.
That's why we're having the first discussion. They
Just
just hot off the
200.
And this
press.
shows like
It's
how many,
200,000 benefit.
yeah, how many times I've looked at this
Yep.
and,
Well, we're all looking at that page for the first time, so.
yeah, I've looked at it too
Yeah.
many times. Let's see if there's any others. Everything else is pretty, I've increased the paving to 75,000 as was requested. I held his equipment replacement fund at 24,000. His equipment is the light tower is in here for equipment. So that was it for that one. The next was the general fund, which is basically this facility. So I'll have to adjust the rent income based on,
You decided.
the contract that you guys just did with MVR.
Yep.
This will anticipate using the remaining ARPA funds in 2025.
Where are you at with that? I don't, what line are you at?
So that's in the grant income,
Okay, gotcha.
is some of that. There's other grant income that's in there. The parks, we've increased the lawns and park budget by a little bit. Plant maintenance went up a little bit, which is this complex, which in that is like, the HVAC contract that we do, the sprinkler and fire alarms contract, miscellaneous stuff, cleaning. Maintenance of park, we've got Christmas decorations in there, which I gotta make sure we still want. There's
there's some Christmas decorations I want for next year.
Okay, so that's in the budget. There's security cameras in here, entertainment in the park, Marble Mill. What?
I don't know, it's zero.
Yeah, but I built it into parks.
You did, oh, okay,
Yeah, down there.
gotcha, all right.
And SEP's money's in here.
Gotcha.
So the rent for this building, I look at the costs, so it'd be the insurance for this building, fuel, electricity, water, sewer, plant maintenance, plant supplies. And then everybody pays a fair share based on square footage.
Okay.
And that's a formula that's been in place before I got here, so it's one that was, that my predecessor put into place. So, next is fire department. The town is still 77% of the budget.
It hasn't changed in years.
It's a
2%.
it's a rolling 5-year average. It was 77% last year and it's the same this year. It slowly climbs, you know, a little, every couple of years it hits another percent. Fire salaries were holding the same. Dispatching went up to 23,700.
Where is that?
Almost
Halfway down.
3/4 of the way
Yeah.
down.
Their property insurance went up. Their workman's comp stayed almost the same. Because they're considered a volunteer department, their workman's comp insurance is in a assigned risk pool with all the other volunteer fire departments across the
It's a
state.
good deal.
So they didn't get hit like we did with our experience mod. Their rent is going from 26,000 to 32,000. Their transportation expenses are at 45,000. The truck payment, which is their bond, principal and interest payment on their fire trucks, the engine and the ladder truck, it slowly comes down every year, so it's 116, almost 117,000.
How many more on that one?
A lot.
Okay.
A lot.
Long time.
Yeah.
It's, one gets done, one was a 12, it was a bond together, but the repayment schedule was, one was a 12-year and one was a 15-year, I think is what we ended up with.
Yep.
So, you know, you still got
Yeah.
double digits on the ladder truck.
Yeah,
Um,
alright.
they held their equipment budget. They requested their equipment replacement fund go from 70,000 to 85,000. And they held the radio and the PPE budget.
Now, they should be getting to a point where they're gonna have to start replacing some of the PPE they.
They buy gear, turnout
5
gear every year.
Yep.
Yeah. So they spend it,
Yeah.
but it's just the turnout gear is absolutely insane.
Right,
You know, it's like
Yeah.
$8,000 or $10,000 to
Right.
outfit one
Crazy.
fireman.
but it's an every 5-year,
I think it expires certification after 5 years.
I'm not for sure on
I think
that,
you're right.
Don't quote me on that, but I think
no,
so.
but I think you're right, yeah.
but they do a good job of
Yep.
keeping it where they need to be. The police department, obviously I haven't sat down with Matt. I shot him, well, I printed him a copy of this today and then I made some other changes and I shot him an email with it. Haven't heard back. This does not anticipate, this is the gross budget. It doesn't anticipate taking any surplus funds and applying it to 2025's tax rate yet. The hardest part about doing their budget is the police salaries, honestly, because they do so much grant work with Stone Garden. So I have to go to Matt and say, I gave him a list here's your guys, here's the amount of overtime hours that they've done so far this year. How much of this is for coverage, covering shifts, how much of this is grant? So he knows his guys, he knows which ones, are covering shifts versus using it for Stone Garden. I don't budget for grant money unless it's known. Stone Garden's not a known amount every
Right.
year. So I back out of my wage spreadsheet. If somebody is working Stone Garden one shift a week, that's 8 hours of overtime a week. So I back out when I look at I take every single employee and I look at how many overtime hours they do in a year. And like I did it, last time I checked, it was week 48. So I would have taken, if they've done 100 hours of overtime so far this year, I divide that into 48 weeks, times it by 52 and get a weekly amount to build into the budget. So the cops, what I do is, if they're working an 8-hour shift of Stone Garden every week, I back that out. We've got some guys that are they pull a lot of extra shifts, so we've got some that have a lot of overtime. So the police salary's still not super solid, because I gotta get back around with Matt again and say, okay, this is what I did. Do you think this is good? Or did I not do enough, or did I do too much? Cause I don't wanna budget too much overtime, because if it's Stone Garden, it's 100%
Covered.
recouped.
Yeah.
So, when he and I had like a brief, his dispatching, like Bill alluded to at the bottom of the page, an 18-month contract was
18-month contract, 165,000, so you prorated it, so it's jumping annually from 65,000 to $110,000.
So I budgeted, we can pay it, we don't have to pay it all upfront, we can make payments. So I budgeted, we're gonna have cash out the door of 110,000 for 2025.
That's something.
We could pay it all up front, and then I can do the accounting of the prepaid but
Whatever's easier for you.
Yeah, do it with.
it's easier to make payments.
Yeah.
Do that.
Because then it works for their cash flow.
Yep.
Okay.
So I budget, it's the 110 out the door. His property
Now that you're
insurance,
gone.
his property insurance and workman's comp, doubled for them. Theirs is hard, they have a high, workman's comp, you've got that assigned dollar rate, that they have per class code, and you can have the safest organization and not have any claims, but that dollar rate could be horrendously high because of the nature of the job.
Right.
Public Works is high because they're in the street. Ironically, the line crew isn't as high as you'd think for what they do,
Right.
but the safety equipment that they have
Oh, okay, gotcha.
kind of wipes some of that out.
Yep.
So the other piece with the property insurance and workman's comp, we insure through the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. They gave us the bill last week with no breakdown. So I emailed them, I'm like, I need a breakdown, this has to be split amongst 6 departments. And they're like, yeah, well, that's coming later. So I know I'll get it before the end of the year because the payment's due the first of the year. So they sent me like a rough split that I worked into the numbers. So workman's comp and property insurance are still very fluid because I don't have their official breakdown yet. I just have like a spreadsheet that somebody in their office put together for me. So it doesn't exactly tie to what the bill says, it's
Right.
close. I don't expect anything dramatically different, but just so you're aware, that one will still be moving for a little bit. Their retirement is going up pretty significantly. In 2024, we opened up Group D in 2023. So 2024, we had really the first effect, but it's going up again. Of course, every year on July 1, the rates increase. So group D is the more expensive for the village out of the 3 groups that we have.
Yeah, we did that.
The lease expense at the bottom of the page, this is the last year on that cruiser lease. And we're holding another 15,000 for their equipment replacement fund.
Is that enough?
Into their equipment replacement fund.
Yeah.
It's up for discussion, like,
Yeah, sure.
Matt hasn't asked me to increase it yet, but we also haven't sat down.
No, we'll sit down later this week to fine tune that.
And is
Sure.
it because he gets a lot from Stone Garden,
So
that
we
it's not
got a
necessary?
truck last year from Stone, but the problem is those vehicles we have to use for Stone Garden. So we got the truck and then we got a cruiser prior to that.
You can't
No,
just,
those are no restrictions.
I was gonna say, I thought
Okay,
you
cause
could
the
use.
No
cruiser
restrictions.
was,
First one was,
yeah.
years ago.
So,
Okay.
but he did tell me, like, looking at the age of his fleet,
Uh-huh.
like, there's one that's starting to give us a lot of trouble.
Right,
So we're at the point where he's like, I'm not sure if we're gonna need one
okay,
in 25, so they do have their equipment fund. I gotta look,
Yeah, see what it
to see
is.
how much
See
is
what
in
is
there. I
in
don't
there.
remember off
Yeah.
the top of my head.
okay.
But
That's the right thing to
the
do.
last cruiser upfit we did was right around $70,000.
Yeah,
So it's not cheap.
it's not cheap, but
So-
they need reliable, good vehicles.
So can we have the bigger initial discussion about police at this point? Sure. Yes, so it's, I mean, there's some obvious things that, if you focus on the uncontrollables, just look at that top line on, for police, employees' health and insurance,
insurance.
just massive increase. Can we first though, if not an action item, can we continue to build the proposed budget using an across-the-board 4% increase?
Yeah.
To point out, that's what the town of Swanton just did, to stay with exactly what they're doing, which we typically try to do. That works as again, no action item at this point. The other thing we have talked about is building 2 budgets for the police, utilizing something to get us, doesn't have to be exact, but closer to St. Albans City, which is the absolute comparison organization in the same county, doing the same job, essentially patrol, really so many similarities. They've entered into another contract, so the question is, do we build this with a 4%, and then do we do something similar to what St. Albans is doing, and essentially what they do, if you're in patrol, or you're a sergeant, there's a scale, and it's based on your patrol, years of service, boom, this is your salary. You're a sergeant, years of service, this is a salary. Do we at least build a model for comparative purposes?
I think we should, yeah. I think that there should be a rate step increase, right, for, you know, a patrolman who's been on the job 3 years versus a patrolman who's been on the job for 5 years, you know?
Yep.
But also, I think we should also do the same for PWD and their wages as well, and get them up to where they're making a comparable salary to some of these other highway public works departments.
So we can work on those, and then you'll have comparisons, and again, we know this is first glance, but I think the baseline is here, and then we build one literally,
Yep.
and then you have to look, and some of those things, and we have to have the more difficult conversation with the chief. Sorry, cruiser might have to wait.
Right,
That's the reality of it. If we don't have people, we don't need cruisers.
exactly.
And I'm not saying salary solves everything. It's salaries, it's facilities, it's the support of the governance structure, the support of the community. If you have all 4 of those and support of prosecution, you got a great organization. I think we're there. We just gotta keep pace with our neighbors, or as close as we can.
Close as we can, yeah.
So the next one is, the commercial, what's left of the commercial building fund, and that's really just the revolving loan funds at this point. The next page is the estimated tax rates. So, yeah, so
That's a big one.
so the highway, we can axe that because I have an error in it.
Yeah, don't even look at that rate right
Yeah.
now.
So,
It's $200,000.
I'm excited.
yeah, me too, because I've been like, holy crap, that's way too much.
Yep.
So I won't go into a lot of detail because we've still, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but, it just kind of shows you, you know, all the revenue and then the expenses. And off to the side, you'll see the 2025 rate that it divides into and what we actually had for a tax rate for 2024. The next page shows you the impact on 175,000, 200,000, and $250,000 home.
Again, not looking at
Yeah,
highway.
don't look at the highway, because I made an error on that one.
Yeah, I mean, you also can't go beyond the estimated tax rate. Well, might as well not even discuss it because we need better numbers.
Yeah.
We'll get
Yeah.
that
Well,
around
and the
too.
thing is,
Yeah.
I kind of need some of my other questions answered.
Right,
Correct.
Yeah,
Before.
from your
yeah.
heads.
And then the last two, the next two pages is the water and sewer rates. So I'll just explain how, and these are still moving too a little bit because I know there's still gonna be some changes. So if you look about halfway down, where it says there's revenue requirement, and then it goes down to fixed and variable costs. That's how much of that revenue requirement is fixed versus variable. The next line down is the 68,000, or 68 million and change, that's the number of gallons of water I've estimated that we sold in 2024. And then
Oh, I see.
the fixed rate and the variable rate, so it's showing you what it should be to make the budget balance. If you go way down to the bottom, to the far right, shows you what the rate currently is.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So,
So this fixed rate is what you need it to be, and the bottom, all the way down to the
Is
bottom.
where it is
where it
currently.
is currently, gotcha.
so residential, commercial, industrial are three tiers for water. So the way a user unit works is your residential is 1 user unit, commercial is 2, industrial is 4. And so we have differential rates between the town and the village. So you've got a residential fixed rate, then it's doubled for the town rate. The village commercial rate is double the residential rate. The town fixed rate for commercial is double the town's residential rate. And then you go down to the industrial, it's kind of a tier effect.
Are you saying this is what your proposed increases would be?
Right,
Yeah.
so, but then this number
Right.
down here is what the village residential numbers are
Gotcha.
currently.
Yep.
So, it's, something I don't think we need to jump up to that, but we need to go to some place.
In the middle.
Because if we leave the numbers where we're at right now, we're gonna have a revenue shortfall of 236,000.
Gotcha.
It's time to work.
So that's enough that we need to kind of shave it.
Been almost 5 years now, hasn't it?
We haven't done a significant change to the water and sewer rates for quite a while, because
Okay.
they've had a
We've only
healthy.
done one in 14 years that I've been here.
I bet we've had more than that, but they haven't been dramatic.
Yeah.
These are gonna, because they've had a healthy balance in the cash. Sewer's kind of the same way, if you go to the next page. Not as huge of a jump. What's hurting us there is we used to get a significant amount in our special sewers. The one that contributed to that significantly is no longer in business. So the special sewer is way lower than it historically has been.
That's been sold off, right?
So,
Chance of that coming back.
It has not been sold off, but it's essentially been decommissioned
So you
as a cheese
need
plant.
a bigger increase for this guy, right? Am I reading this properly? Your fixed rate versus this rate down in the corner, is that right?
so,
No, you don't.
no, this one I
Left.
don't have the spreadsheet set up the same, cause I didn't do that other
Oh,
column.
I mean, it's almost like the correlation here.
Yeah.
Given that.
Yeah, so if you look at the way down at the bottom,
Yeah.
you'll see the fixed and variable rate, what they currently are, versus halfway up is what they really should be.
Where it starts 4130, 8261.
Is what the residential
Yep.
rate is, should be, and it's currently at 37.83.
It's not far away.
No,
Okay,
sewer's
gotcha.
much closer. Then the last page is, I know we're still missing some pieces.
Oh.
This is the capital for next year wish list. The big one on here are the exciters for the hydro plant. 8 reclosures that are needed for the electric department, AMI.
I guess so.
Um,
I know.
they're the big ticket. And then the other funds are in there too, so. But take a look at it, let me know what you have for questions and, as I get more I've been in these budgets, updating them almost daily, as I get more information and everything, so.
Now, the wastewater thing is gonna take the bigger jump 2 years from now?
So, right now, so both of our SRF loans have been approved and signed, you guys did that. It is showing that both those bonds start paying in 2026,
26, okay.
but
Can't wait till 26.
There's a
chance.
chance the bigger one will be 2027. All we have to do, if you get a change order that lasts more than 2 weeks, then the answer is yes. If you finish January 3rd of 2026, and you pay only the interest in 26, full bond amount 27.
So you need a change order.
Not gonna force it. Let it happen organically.
Don't worry, well,
You probably will.
How much did it hit the loss of the cheese factory?
it was significant.
20-25%? Or
I
overall?
can't really discuss customer accounts in open session, but
It was huge, right?
Significant.
it was significant. That's all I have.
One little final piece on the budget, because Lynn did mention the word ARPA. We will have a final motion recommended by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns for our meeting on the 30th. That will take care of any, even if they're obligated, any remaining funds in that balance.
I still wanna take the chance that we're gonna lose any of it,
Right.
so
Just to be
I'd like
safe.
it cleaned up.
may as well.
They'll still be designated for their intended purpose, just protected.
Gotcha.
Okay. We have other business now.
Moving right along. Village manager update.
Just a few. I can sense everybody's been at this for a couple of hours now, 3 really, but let's get at it. Again, this is for discussion purposes only. We talked about it briefly. You heard the numbers. It's not a surprise. Dispatching contracts, we will warn those and get motions officially on our December 30th meeting. The fire department contract is 1 year from July 1st, 25 to June 36, 26, 23,000 and change. And the PD is an 18-month contract from January 1st, 25 to June 30, 2026, in the amount of 165,000. So
That's unbelievable.
we'll officially get those in front of you for an action item on the 30th.
Well, they're in the budget.
They're in the budget, yep. The budget's gotta be approved, so you're right, that'll happen. However, before the budget is finalized, we will owe our first payment on the police contract. We definitely have to have an action item on that,
Is
on the
that
30th.
paid quarterly then or something?
We can do up to 6 installments per the contract. Yep. Let's just talk, go around the horn a little bit and talk about what's happening in the organization. Swanton Electric, so our long-awaited AMI project, so advanced metering and infrastructure, is making progress. We're the first VEPSA utility to actually receive the DCUs. So those are data concentrator units, 15 of them.
Yeah.
Most pole mounted, some tower mounted, and essentially, when those are up and programmed, then the entire VEPSA organization can order all of the automated, the actual meters themselves. Love to tell you they'll come overnight, they won't. They'll probably get here in late summer, fall, in all likelihood, and then they'll be installed, and that part will be complete. So
First one on Oak Haven.
first, yeah, well, so the DC units will get installed in the next couple of weeks. Then the 3,800 meters will get ordered, and then those will get deployed as soon as they come in. While those are being ordered, the water meters will be ordered in the interim, and likely probably installed at the same time, or may even beat the installation of the electric meters.
So the water meters, a few years ago, the voters approved us taking out a loan to purchase them. The remaining piece, that's a conversation we gotta have on whether or not
Yep.
we're gonna do debt or if we're gonna do, cash and use up our US bank funds.
Yeah, good discussion. So, looks like finally, and we have we purchased the only first and only VEPSA meter tester. It's on Dwayne's side table, little thing, very expensive, but we're ready to go.
Cool.
And we have to build VEPSA for that if we haven't already. Meter, that's $30,000. We're in the process of getting the final quotes for the replacement bucket truck for electric. That's been a long time coming. So that'll be built and delivered in 26. I'll believe it if we see it in 26.
It'll get ordered in 25.
The first phase of our GIS project is pretty much done. So all inventory, everything that we own on the system, entered in the GIS. We know exactly where it is, what it is. We're making great progress in that area. We'll move to wastewater. So I think a couple of you have come down for a tour. If you want to go down for another look, if you have not made it down, just let me know. We'll make it happen. It's making great progress. So the centrifuge, good news. It looks like the engineering design is going to come through. Now we are searching for a local welding company to get a contract to do the frame.
Oh,
It's
yes,
gotta
it
sit on a
needs to be
frame.
changed.
It's a custom-made frame.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them, so we'll do some outreach and identify somebody that can do that work. All the effluent, the outflow structure is being formed this week, new piping installed, so it really, it is a complicated project in a very confined space, and it's all happening all at once. So I think for the two of you that have been
Yep.
down, you saw exactly what's
Yeah.
happening and all they're doing in short order, so.
And I recommend if you do the tour, wait till spring.
It's cold.
It's cold.
Doors are closed.
Kingsbury Construction has asked many times, is it always this cold and windy here? And the answer is yes,
Yes.
right on Lake Champlain, for sure. Water, so both Todd and Avery had a meeting today with a state expert that was on site to identify how we can maximize efficiency and effectiveness of our entire system, looking at new pumps to reduce the likelihood of blockages and failures, because those things are aging out. So we had Ray Solomon, who's like world class in Vermont, and he's
He's like an icon.
he is
and a
truly an
friend.
icon, and he was in our house for a pretty critical meeting, so that was good.
Nice.
Did you have a question? You look
No, I'm listening.
Okay, all right. Hydro, so rain and snow is good. We've been able to increase production. We're in the final stages of filing our deadline, meet our deadline for our security inspection report to FERC. We talked about it earlier. We continue to work with Celeste Fay, who is seemingly tremendous of Fay Consulting, to really finalize our issue and switch gears from our former contracting company to finally fix Unit 2. So our hope is before we get spring flow, we need that thing up and running for sure.
Agreed.
You're confident.
Gotta be. It's not going to be anything but. Really.
What other
That's
choice do we have?
welcome to my world that I live in. They all live it every day. They think they're sick of it. But.
Yeah, I understand.
We're working with Paul
understand that
Nolan,
for a second?
obviously on FERC relicensing, but I think we talked about it. I have now had the official conversation with him. He will take the lead in creating a legal brief to all the parties that are required to, that'll include the state and the feds, on renaming our capacity. Very important for us to be under 10 megawatts. So we're restricted by the penstock. You can only produce enough megawatts that the water will allow. We can never get to 10. So the way that they name their capacity right now is they individually take each turbine and say if it's running, and this one's running all by itself, it's this capacity.
Sure.
Times 5 puts you slightly over 10, like 10.3, 10.5.
Yeah.
In theory, we're 9.6. And that is a restriction of the system. So here's where it's critically important. The state of Vermont continually talks about legislation that says if you're under 10 megawatts, perhaps hydro meets the requirement for new renewable. That's massive for us.
It is.
There are much more grant availability. There is much more grant availability for smaller hydros, meaning under 10 megawatts. So we're gonna pursue this with a passion to identify the restrictions of the penstock and be reclassified to help us with grant funding and eliminate restrictions on the state.
Absolutely.
We are classified at what right now?
Well, yeah, 10 point something, 10.5.
Different
Yeah,
prices for
it's
rent.
just, it makes no sense, but.
And maybe
Fire department, they've been very active lately, as you know, 2 structure fires within 36 hours. One was a fatal, the other was an injury. A whole bunch of other calls during that time, so tomorrow they have a critical incident stress debriefing here, very important for them, so super proud of the way that they handle that and take that seriously. They've been through it before. Those are not easy things to unseat. So that cumulative stress has got to be talked about, and they're doing that. So they're having that after action here. They'll do debriefing. They're going to do an after action as well. So 8 different agencies went to the West Swanton fatal fire. You always can improve, right? So they're doing an after action report soon with all the agencies to talk about lessons learned. Police, just real quickly, because Matt comes in, the chief comes in enough to update us, but you probably saw the press release, another pursuit, another drug arrest, another person, another individual from Springfield, Lawrence Lowell area. Like always, same MO, they're up here just selling the drugs in our area, so foot pursuit, we won the battle and he got taken into custody.
Perfect.
Yep. Still working to recruit full-time and part-time officers, so if anyone's out there, if anyone happens to be in the crowd, if anyone attends these meetings regularly and is looking for a possible career change, Damon, perhaps you, we're hiring. We're hiring police officers.
He's already talked to me about it.
I'm gonna try anything and everything I can. And just a reminder for everybody, especially Northwest Access, our next meeting date has been changed from the 23rd to the 30th. So I know, Diane, we do a good job with our updates on our page, but how do we, other than saying it right now, let them know? That's it? Okay, all right, great. That's all I have for updates.
Just check.
Well, thank you, Bill,
Thank you.
and special thank you to the fire department and all the other responders that came along, the 2 fires. Any other necessary business?
Yes.
you can go first.
Yep, we have it's an action item, so, this is 2 parts, and this always comes with a task. So, the first one is, we need, 1 member of the governance board to, sign a contract, and then 1 to complete the survey.
The one that
And
Adam usually does.
Adam usually does it, so that's the survey, that doesn't require an action item. I had to do one, his is only 2 pages. Mine was 3 pages today.
Thank you, Adam.
It's KBS.
KBS survey.
So it's KBS, so they're truly the only game in town that
They
can
are.
take the complexity of our budget and do it justice, and this one does include a single audit.
Yep, we have a single audit for this
For
year.
reference purposes, the last contract was $39,575. This is a slight increase, $40,000 even. So the action item motion would be
That's not
something.
to exceed, right?
Not to exceed.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it will be that.
It will be when we make it
I was
that
gonna
in
say,
our motion.
it won't be under that, I've never seen that in my life. The suggested motion would be the Swanton Village Trustees approve a contract with Cattell, Brannigan and Sargent in the amount of $40,000 not to exceed $40,000 to audit the Village of Swanton for the years ended December 31st, 2024.
So moved.
I second.
Okay?
Okay.
All set?
We have first and second, any further discussion on the matter?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We just need, Bill needs to sign it and somebody else.
Gene, you want to sign it or want me to sign it?
Doesn't matter.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Didn't work.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Arm wrestle over.
You got it.
It's coming down your way.
Gene signs. He had scissors.
Governance
That's you.
signature.
Can I get this back to you a week from this coming Friday?
As
Ooh,
long
this
as
is
I have it
working.
before the end
I
of
hate
the
that.
year.
Oh, you'll have it before the end of the
Before
year.
they walk in the door.
So that just
Okay.
means you and me and Heidi get the ones left to fill it out. I
she
passed
knows
them out today and I got a bunch of them back.
Yeah, no, I will bring it, I'm off next Thursday and Friday, so I will make sure I bring it in.
Hey, it's 09 December.
I figured the amount of grants.
There you go.
They listeners are good.
Military sticks with you, doesn't it?
No, it's more international. They're gonna have to deal with a lot of people.
Thank you.
All right.
They were fun.
Is that the end of any other necessary business?
No,
I
no.
have nothing.
Nope.
I
I'm
got
okay too.
Saturday, the 14th at 11 a.m. is Santa Day at Divine Treasures, and Sunday, the 15th at 1 p.m. is Cookies and Cocoa with Santa at the Abenaki Tribal Building.
Santa's busy.
He's a busy guy.
Yeah.
And then
What
Divine,
about you?
and then,
You got anything else? You
No.
got any? No?
No, I'm good. I had a question that got answered. That happens a lot. If you're listening.
okay,
If you listen.
Well,
so,
in this case, I asked.
any other executive session?
No need for executive session lines.
You're kidding.
All right. I make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. First, sorry.
It's okay.
We have a first and a second to adjourn this lovely meeting. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried to adjourn this meeting.
Good night. Merry Christmas.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Merry
Reese.
Christmas.
Merry